It is day 9 of me learning how to make animated movies. My name is Michael Lardizabal. My goal this year is to become awesome at pre-production, production, and post-production, specifically using writing, art, and Blender for 3D modeling and animation. You're probably a creative person or a lover of creative things if you're watching this, so I'm glad you're here. Thanks, let's get into it. First off, I just want to show you an update. I've been working on this sword in the stone, and I made this crazy cave wall, which is really awesome. You might be wondering why it's all random colors, and that's because that's an option that you can do so that you can better see stuff. Because you can imagine, like, if you were trying to work around with the scene and all was the same color, it'd be really annoying to do. And instead, look, it's nice and color different, so you can actually better distinguish what to click on to do the things you're trying to do. But if we go over into shading, we can kind of see where it's currently at, and it's gonna get a lot better, but it's already really cool. It makes me really, really happy. This thing specifically, the giant rock wall, is using something called geometry nodes, which is essentially almost like coding, but with drag and drop things that you first set up this effect, and then it triggers this other effect, and you can set up these crazy chains to do lots of different stuff. So for this one, I essentially am creating like a system of points, little points of data that says at these points spawn these rock objects, and that's why I'm able to get this crazy wall. And I don't know exactly how to do this with other things yet, but it gets my brain thinking. And I was like, I'm making this cool sword, and I'm gonna go through this exercise probably multiple times and make different kinds of swords. And I just got this image in my head of a humanoid character that I use this concept with, and then it just becomes a man made of swords. So it makes me laugh, but it's also freaking cool. And I could do a man made of rocks, or a man made of socks, locks, pretty much anything, and it doesn't even have to rhyme with those. Anyways, it's really fun. I'm really enjoying learning, and it feels really cool. It feels like something that, it's like I'm learning magic. Like, it's like, how does this stuff, how is it possible? Mulan, storyboard practice. Mulan's great because it's not only me practicing storyboards, but it's me practicing like drawing Asian characters. It's me drawing armor. It's learning to draw the architecture, and it's also a way to like study Disney character design, which is really cool. Which is what I'm gonna walk you through right now. So, first off, continuing from where I was before, the hawk alerts the enemy. A grappling hook flies up over the wall, and he's like, "What is that?" And then that's the face of like, huh? And then the next thing that happens is a bunch of them fly over the wall, and it's like, oh my gosh, we're being attacked. So I'll get into that next time. But I want to break down some of what was so cool about this one. One, I did this face, and I don't think it's that bad, but I did notice that it's a lot kind of taller than it should be, and the eyes should be wider. And so ultimately I put this note: too close, wider, and shorter. So it's like wider eyes, and then it gets the nose. So essentially I just need to adjust my triangle. But I am really proud that a lot of the relationships of how the hair and the other stuff has stuck. And I feel like if it was like in animation and it was just that one shot, you probably wouldn't notice that my stuff was not exactly perfect, which is really good. Like, it's giving me a lot of confidence that as I get more into 2D animation, that I'm gonna be able to do it, which is honestly something I've been a little bit not stressed about, but look, you know, just like, it just feels so far from being good at that. And this gave me hope. Another thing that was really interesting was this shot. This looks pretty good compared to the shot. It looks pretty much similar to what it is. And the face had no details on it. And I totally didn't even notice until I stopped to pause the video and then actually draw the character. And the next thing I thought was really cool was the hand. So I have right here just like the blob shape. And I really think the way that the Disney animators drew it is they literally drew this blob, and then they were like, okay, I'm gonna carve out these fingers, and then I'm gonna carve out this thumb, and then you get a hand. Now that looks really bad right there, but if you can see, like right here, I actually drew like the mitt of the hand, and then I carved it out, which is really cool. And that's actually something that I feel like is really fundamental to how Disney draws. So, for instance, the wing of this bird was this part right here, which is covered up by the guy's hair, like was essentially like, what if you did this shape, but then you carved out a section of the feather, and then you add this line, and then you already have this shape, but then you carved out this other line. So instead of drawing everything individually, it really, like, they are masters of, here's a big shape, and then chop it up and fill it in. And I just think the efficiency and like the smartness of that is really impressive. It really is inspiring me to really think about my designs in terms of 2D animation, because even with 3D, where I'm mostly just going to 2D animate hair, faces, and hands, I want an illustrated look for the 3D. And I think when it comes to character design, if I go too busy with the design, I'll be breaking some of the mindset and the philosophies of what a 2D animator would be thinking in terms of making a character. And so it's really cool. I'm learning a lot so much, and I'm not even like a couple minutes into the film. So yeah, so far Mulan is this treasure trove of knowledge for me, and I'm so excited to keep it going. If you don't know, my story is a kung fu revenge fantasy story. Basic premise is, what if a guy lost his pregnant wife and his right hand in a raid on his town? And so he was actually this awesome master martial artist, but the opposition was too powerful, they got the jump on him or whatever. And so he goes and makes a pact with a demon in order to get crazy powers to avenge his wife and unborn child and his right hand. And it's also, there's some deeper stuff in there that I'll get into later, but it's also just a great excuse to do martial arts animation and be in a world that is really cool. A quarter Filipino, and I think the Philippines is really interesting because it's like this melting pot, so many different cultures, particularly, Asian cultures. And so in my mind, I think it would be really neat to have a fantasy world that's like, what if you took that and expanded it? And it was really big, and so you get elements of a lot of different Asian cultures, but then you see what would happen if they were also full of magic and kung fu and cool things. And so yeah, my dad's also this crazy martial artist, and he taught me all this stuff, so like I know a lot of stuff and can do a lot of the movements. So I'm really excited to be able to choreograph some of the fights and stuff, which is really neat. Real quick, I'll show you on the next page. I was continuing with my visual development course from one of the guys that actually did character development and world development for Mulan, which is pretty nuts. He says this so many times that I feel like it must be important. And that's the thing I've kind of realized. If someone's like, hey, here's the most important thing, and they kind of bore you to death with it, then it probably means it actually is that important. So you should probably really think about it a lot. So the big thing is focusing on needs versus wants when it comes to research, character design, environment design, and really thinking about, here's the story, and literally breaking down into bullet points. These are the things that I need to absolutely know and research and iterate on to be able to tell the scene. And all the rest of the stuff is wants, things that you shouldn't spend as much time on until you for sure have the needs locked in. And that was really good. And the other thing he just kind of said a lot that was really interesting was why research isn't so important. These little scribbles, he had like a fully done version of like a Volkswagen Beetle for imagination, and then one with reference. And he just really illustrated the point that research is important, and why not use reference? The other thing he said along those lines is like, you have to know what's real before you stylize them, which is similar of the idea of like, you have to know the rules before you break them. And then kind of the last thing that I really took from it was he goes big picture first. So really looking at the macro understanding of the culture and where the origins came from, which was really cool to think about. If they were part of a culture and moved, they would be taking their culture from them. So like if it was a coastal town, a coastal civilization, but they had to move into like the desert or whatever, they would still have a lot of those things of their heritage from water places in their pottery, in their clothing, in their what they think about, which is really neat. And so even with like a fantasy world, that gets me thinking about like what was the progression of the cultures from the big cultural moves. Then it's more about like the environment, the locale. If you were to take a snapshot on Google Earth, what would you see in that area? And then from there it gets into like, okay, cities and towns and homes, and then what's their pottery like and their clothing or whatever. And I feel like it's so easy to get lost in the small stuff to begin with that I really like how he broke it down, going down further each time. Feeling really good, pretty stoked, kind of tired today. I'm gonna go ahead and stop this so I can go to sleep and get back to it tomorrow. I'm so glad you're here. By the way, thank you for all the new subscribers. It makes me really happy that you're here, because this is the first time I'm making content that I really think I found what I'm passionate about making, both in terms of what I'm working on, but also the content and what I'm sharing. And yeah, I'm just really grateful you're here, and I hope you have the best freaking day or whatever time of the day it is for you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.